With that, I'll let Scott go. Gianluca.
Well, John, thank you again for putting this on. And Gary, thank you again for all your years of doing this. This is exciting. I started with Pepper's Day, it's over before, and you know, get through the group. So I'd like to introduce you to my company, Luca. My name is Scott Sasso, I'm the founder and CEO. I started this company about 2.5 years ago, and our focus has been specifically on helping kids learn how to read for using the power of AI and speech recognition. And just to give you a little bit of background, I brought my son here today. His name is Luca. And the company is named after Luca because Luca actually is like 1 in 5 kids that go to school every day with dyslexia. And what I found was really impactful was the fact that not only just it's the number of kids that have dyslexia, but the amount of kids that go undiagnosed, 80%. So what does that mean? That means that those kids are being, they do not get the academic support that they need to make over school. So they're falling through the cracks. And, you know, the impact on their life is significant, not only just on them, but also the family, school. And so what we developed, I worked with Carnegie Mellon for the last 2.5 to 3 years, and we built the first AI-powered reading tutor that incorporates both speech recognition and AI, okay, to build custom content, all dynamic content with targeted interventions for these kids. I'm going to show you exactly what that means. So this is our tech stack. We won 2 awards. We've only been in the market here in the last, we've been building this out over a year. And already won a couple of awards from some big ed tech conferences. But what we have is we have our first component is our speech recognition. We're doing phonetic level speech recognition, which is different from just word level recognition. Phonetic is down to the individual letter sound pairs of the word. And why is that important? Because it's about the sounds that you're struggling with, not the words that you're struggling with. So that's why it's really important that we have that level of detail, especially for these kids that really struggle with sound. Okay. So we take all of that speech data and we move that into our AI, machine learning, and deep learning model, where we actually have a dictionary that we create 128,000 words. We know every grapheme phoneme relationship of every one of those words. We know what is the age of acquisition for those words. So when we bring those words and make those suggestions into ChatGPT, we know exactly what the reading needs and what words should be fixed into their stories. And then we track everything. We track every time they get things correct, as well as every time they get things wrong. So we can provide the custom plans, which is really the last piece. We're building custom plans for all of these students. So this is all personalized learning for every individual. And so that is the beauty of our platform, is that we can scale as these kids improve through their reading journey. And then the last part is we feed that information into StoryLab, which is our we interface with ChatGPT, and we generate these custom stories for these kids. So this is a great use case. I met this boy last year. Okay, he was a 9-year-old at a dyslexia school. And I asked him a question. I said, if you had a favorite superhero power, what would it be? He said, I want to do teleportation so I can travel the world. Like, that's pretty cool for a 9-year-old. And so I said, well, I'm going to read some stories. And what we're going to do is identify the sounds that you struggle with, as I mentioned. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to build you a custom story based upon your reading age, your reading level. Okay. And we're going to integrate all of those sounds into the story based upon what your interests are. So imagine a 4th grader that's reading at a 1st grade reading level is now reading content that he's interested in at his 4th grade level, but at that 1st grade reading level, but working on those sounds. So, and this just sort of gives you a couple quick shots of just sort of how we have our screens, and you can select your interests. And then you can see our simple reading screen, which is 1 sentence at a time. You can sound out the words and you see how it highlights the different sounds in that word. Really, that's all part of that Luca dictionary that I mentioned. And then what we have here is we have, this is like a lesson to work on a specific sound. The cool part about what I showed you here was that, this is all built. Everything's integrated. We worked really hard over the last year and a half to build this platform. So this is not something that's just concept. This is actually in the market. And we're working on it now. So in terms of the market opportunity, it's an evergreen market. What do I mean by that? I mean that there's new kids, over 1 million kids every year in the US that are coming into this market. 6.1 billion is the opportunity for just for the dyslexic readers in the United States. On a global scale, this is not just a United States issue. This is a global issue. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit more in a couple slides, but I think that this market is actually a lot larger than what I have here on the screen. So, in terms of our team, we have a fantastic team put together, all from mainly from CMU and from the tech side. I have an outsourced development firm as well as help bring the platform to life. I've got some neurosurgeons that are our team that are just fantastic and excited about what we're out to solve. And, you know, we have somebody from the dyslexic school in Pittsburgh that we have a pilot right now. So in terms of traction, again, we partner with a lot of educational institutions to help build what we've established. We're in discussions with a number of schools. You know, starting with that kind of our initial launch in the beginning of schools. We have gone to a lot of conferences. I'm really excited about going to the biggest conference next week. In 2.5 weeks in San Diego, the ASU GXP Summit. That is like the premier event, and we are an attendee as well as kind of a sponsor into one of the AI programs there. I've partnered with a number of different competitions to we're in the final groups for a couple different grant opportunities as well. And in terms of our business model, we're a SaaS-based business model. We're focused on the B2B market as well as the B2C market. We think there's a big opportunity for the consumer market because parents are looking for tools that can help their kids. Again, we also have some other revenue generating opportunities where we partner with tutors as well as create an online marketplace for tutoring with reading. As far as sort of where we are in terms of capital investment opportunity, we are currently looking at a seed post-money raise for $2 million. It's a tiered investment structure for $500,000 for the first tier, $1.5 million for the second tier. In terms of use of funds, you know, we really need to still want to build out our speech recognition model, and we need to generate some more user base. So we'll be focused on sales and marketing as well as you know, building out some software. And with that, I hope you enjoyed it, and look forward to getting any of your questions.
I want to understand if you think about it, and you talk a lot about the product, but not about the market. And so, what are the metrics that you are operationally tracking that tell you that you're at 5?
Yeah, so it's going to be reading fluency, reading accuracy right now. That's kind of our zero in terms of what the hopefully that's what you're asking.
All right, so we're off. That tells me that you're product focused.
Okay.
I want the business answer.
Okay.
How do I know your business is that product market fit? How do I know you have exponential growth? How do I know that you have validated customer acquisition costs?
So what I would tell you is that I maybe can't answer 100% what you're asking, but I think that from a scalability perspective, is that more kind of a line? That's the beauty of our platform. Everything is scalable. You do not need any human intervention, AI technology stack.
How many customers are coming in per month? How is that?
I'm still early on. I'm early on right now. I'm probably bringing in somewhere around. I have about 350 parents that have signed up right now, and we probably have about 30 to 40 users that are on the platform right now.
So 300 parents are signed up for free and 40 users are paid.
Yes. Some of those signed in, and then we monitoring kind of what their usage is on the site, and then some kind of fall off. We've made some tweaks to the online user experience, which I think has significantly enhanced our, you know, adoption rate. So we just put those in place in the last week. So
I'm gonna follow up on John's question. He was asking product market fit, but your business model says that you actually have global. And does this work on a tablet, a cell phone? Does it require Wi-Fi? And who are your background linguistic tutors?
So we have natural language processing people from CMU that are really helping us with the ASR portion of the platform. As far as sort of like scalability internationally, we have not executed a contract, but we have an opportunity to execute a contract with a US-based company that has international reach into 15 million students in like 15 different countries. So,
Next product, Scott.
yeah, thanks.
Oh, so yeah, just to continue on a little bit, stickiness.
Yeah.
Do you have any metrics to say, how long do the kids use it? Do they use it more or less? Do they taper off? What is the switch that you use to get them to use it more and love it and to make sure that parents renew?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so one of the things that that's part of what I was looking at when I saw this initial data. I saw people come in and we saw that, people weren't using it as much. So we started to make some changes to the user interface. So that was number one. And I'm now getting feedback from parents saying how their kids love the stories that are being generated and they like using the application.
Any metrics on number of uses per week?
No,
or
not yet,
anything
not
like
yet.
that?
No. We're still early on some of that stuff, but I will tell you this, the coolest thing that we're doing right now is we're doing AI generated images. So as we generate these dynamic stories, we're feeding that in through the API and we're generating these images. So we're doing that as a way to help kind of pull that user in a little bit more, because we think that'll kind of draw that student in or that reader in a little, kind of from the stickiness.
So I know that some of these imaging generating pieces take a long time, take a lot of compute cycles.
Yeah,
So what is the usage model? If someone says, hey, some kid says, hey, I'd like a story about going on a camping trip with Batman.
yeah,
And then and then a day later, hey, guess what? We have a story
yeah.
that you can read. How's that
Yeah,
cycle work?
so we queue up the story. So we ask questions initially when they first sign in. We start to generate some of those. We have some pre-generated stories just to start us the assessment while we're generating those stories in the background. It takes us an average for just a story under about 30 seconds to not only just generate the story, but also generate all the text to speech, all the voice sounds that come with the story. So we're at about 30 seconds there. And then so then we can queue up those stories, have like 3 or 4 loaded up, as well as image generation is taking us somewhere around 1.5 to 2 minutes. So we would store a big library of images that try to kind of recirculate some of the ones that maybe connect to another story. So we didn't have to generate it every single time. Yes.
You said you were working with Carnegie Mellon, and I see someone on your advisory board that works with them. Who owns the patent? I see it's pending.
Yeah, so I own everything. It is patent pending. I'm in the final stages of our patent application. Because we did that about a year ago, so we're in the final stages. So yeah. I own 100%.
Thank you.
Yes.
Following up on, the international idea of it, how hard do you think it would go to a different language, say Vietnamese?
Yeah, so when we talk about international, we're really talking about English as a second language, more as English language learners. So could we convert this into their native language? Yes, we can, but there's that phonetic dictionary, the phonetic library that we talked about. There's a lot of work that goes into that. We would have to kind of have a different approach there. So I'd kind of focus just on the English. That market's 1.5 billion readers, students that are learning English as a second language. So it is a huge opportunity, huge market. That would be my focus initially. Yes,
Dyslexic kids are everywhere.
yeah,
They are distributed evenly throughout the population, throughout the world.
yeah.
How are you gonna efficiently reach their parents? It's expensive to reach everyone.
Yes, it is. And I think that's I was initially, when I started this journey, I was like focused on the parents because I had that personal experience with my kid and understood that pain, and you're trying to find something to help them out. So so that's kind of was my initial foray into the space. But then as we kind of got into this and I started realizing how big the school piece of it was, that's where I started to kind of shift and kind of focus on both. I have seen other startups in the space that have done both. So I think we have a good opportunity to be successful both in the B2C and B2B component. As far as kind of reaching those parents, I think there's a great opportunity in terms of the social media presence. I have already started a digital campaign from an SEO perspective, and we've already generated over 600 pages of content on our website. And we're already in the rank number 1. We've only been at this for like 8 months, so I'm pretty excited about that effort. So I think we're going to have some, and that leads to about 1.5 million searches every month. So we think we can get around 40,000 visitors to our website probably over the next 3 to 4 months. So that's how we're going to reach them.
Great.
Maybe,
If, you know.
I don't want to steal.
No
Okay, no
kidding.
problem.
have you raised
Yeah.
any money?
Yeah, no, we are working on it. We're actively involved in like about 6 investors right now for probably they could take down the full 2 million. So
Great, thank you so much, Scott.
you.
For your great presentation. Next, we're gonna have Sajol come up. Here. I'm gonna pass this over to you.
Thank you, 10 Capital for inviting us and for the Seattle Angels group for being a part of this thing. I'm excited to talk about this. I'm Sajol Gochal, CEO of Advanced Telesensors. So you all must know someone in your family that probably had a heart attack or at risk of heart failure. So how would you like to have these tragedies prevented? That's what Advanced Telesensors is focused on. So the problem we are solving is reducing hospital readmissions for heart patients that cost insurers billions of dollars and many lives are lost. Actually, the solution is very simple. You need a heart monitor that's always on, that can remotely send alerts to doctors and nurses so that on abnormal heart rhythm, so that you can prevent these cardiac events from escalating. So put yourself in the position of a cardiologist. He loses patients from time to time, or has to send them into critical care. What he needs is a way to remotely monitor his patients and get early warnings on cardiac events so that he can adjust treatment, thus saving lives and minimizing penalties for Medicare due to readmissions. So we have a revolutionary way of doing this. It was developed at NASA and is protected by 6 patents. It's a touchless heart monitor. It looks like this. It mounts on the wall and doesn't use any wearables. It detects the micro vibrations of your heart using radar and sends alerts so that timely intervention can take place. So we have competition, but the interesting part about cardio is that we detect multiple other critical conditions as opposed to our competition that does just heart rate and respiratory rate. In addition, our cost is significantly lower, which enables us to scale very rapidly. So why am I so excited about this team? I've known Frank for over 20 years. He's got a hospital operations background and I trust him. Dr. Jason Zagrosky is our chief medical officer, and he is a specialist in heart rhythms. The rest of the team has all the skills necessary to bring us to market. Consists of John Armstrong and Steve Monacos, who are from NASA, where the original technology was developed. And Kristen Norton is our business development with a cardiology background. And Elisa Maldonado is our FDA consultant that has had 20 years of experience with the FDA. So I'm a serial executive with over 3 successful exits totaling $3 billion. So why am I so passionate about this business? My father passed away of a heart attack at just 51 and left a huge impact on me. I realized I made a mistake focusing on engineering alone. So now I am making up for lost time and focusing on healthcare, and I need your help. So you may be wondering or thinking, what is the big deal of sensing heart rate without wearables? By law, Medicare reimbursements require at least 16 days of monitoring data out of 30. Cardio is the keystone to Medicare reimbursements because we automatically deliver the 16 days of monitoring data without the patient wearing anything or doing anything. And wearables can't do this. So where's our market? We have strategically focused the company on the $1.5 billion skilled nursing home market, our beachhead market, which is part of the rapidly growing $31 billion remote patient monitoring market. Once we have addressed the skilled nursing home market and learned from all those processes, we'll expand into the broad nursing home market, which is over $5 billion. And this is just the US market that we're focused on right now. So who are our customers? Our customers are patient care integrators. They integrate a lot of the remote patient monitoring devices and provide that service to their customers. So the best part about patient care integrators is they come with the established customer base. So our customer acquisition cost is very low, which maximizes our return on investment. But please remember that Cardio actually enables the entire remote patient monitoring package that is provided by these patient care integrators to be reimbursed, because we guarantee the 16 days out of 30. So our business model is simple. We sell the hardware and we license the software. Just like Tesla or Apple, our margins continuously increase as you move past the hardware cost. In the future, as we go, we will have upsell features, which we can talk about, which we'll sell as a premium service. So how do we know that our customers really want this and that we have a market, right? So we have pilots and paying customers, and we are deployed right now in 3 nursing homes. In addition, we have clinical trials testing occurring at UT Texas San Antonio and at the Texas Cardiac Arrhythmia. And we have filed and worked with the FDA for a whole year in terms of what's called our pre-submissions, which we have submitted, and we're waiting for the approval in the next 60 days. Our patient care integrators have access, this is the 3 we're working with, have access to over 200,000 beds. And we're already generating revenue from Medicare reimbursements through them. So why is this an exciting opportunity for you? Our 5-year projections is $102 million with high profit margins. We are profitable after 2 small rounds of funding. And so this minimizes investor dilution and opens up an opportunity for a great exit. So these are recent acquisitions by large medical companies for remote patient monitoring wearable devices. We will likely be a strategic acquisition, which will not necessarily be based on multiples of sales, and it may not be many years out. So we are raising a small bridge round, a $2.5 million convertible note, and we've raised $500,000 to date. And the purpose is to build our sales pipeline to deliver a $1 million ARR and to complete our FDA 510(k) clearance. Subsequently, after that, we'll do a Series A for a scaling round, and that is all we need to grow this company towards an exit. So I know that a lot of what you should be concerned about is the team. Do we have the passion, tenacity, and good judgment to carry this company to a great exit? So I'll be happy to talk to you so that you can get to know me a little better and see if that's the direction you want to take. Thank you, and I'm open to any questions.
So, sorry, go ahead. How much money have you personally put into this company so far?
Close to about $500,000, and we've raised 6.3.
So looking at the photograph, the sample scenario, it looks like it's just limited to a bedridden patient while they're in the bed.
Good question. So it mounts on the wall, and as long as the person is within that 10-foot range of the sensor, we'll pick them up. So when they're moving around, normally we still track them. If they're moving too much, then we hold, because that mixes up the heart rate and we can't separate the two.
So they could be sitting up and the sensor is pounding at their back and it'll still work?
Oh, absolutely. We need only a millimeter of your body to pick it up.
And when they go outside the 10-foot radius, what does it need to hand off to a wearable or something? What's the scenario?
So the scenario is really tracking patients that may have chronic disease. That's why we're targeting the skilled nursing facilities right now. So you've come off from a stroke or you have COPD, your ability to move is somewhat limited. And if you're not aware, skilled nursing homes don't have continuous monitoring. They actually have nurses that come once in 8 hours. Mandatory requirement for Medicare is 2.52 hours a day. So the key issue is the problem when you have a particular cardiac event is there is got to be an early warning system that by which you can adjust things. But if all things happen catastrophically, then you're always reacting to it. So we're providing the early warning information based on continuous monitoring. The likelihood scenario would be that if you have it, for instance, in an assisted living, which is where it also goes, you could have multiple of these. That's part of the reason we drove the cost down.
Could
Yes.
you speak to your clinical significance and the incidence of false alarms?
So we don't see a lot of false alarms. For the reason is when you have, for instance, like we're a single target sensor right now. So if multiple people came into the field of view, we'll pick them all up. The sensor doesn't go off the wall in terms of that. The biggest challenge, we've tested against an ECG, and we're within 2 beats to 3 beats of accuracy. And in fact, when it comes to a certain amount of motion, we do a better job than ECG. Because when you move things around on your chest, it immediately changes the signal, but we have actually recognized that we have to work with something moving around. So we actually been playing ahead of that curve. So we don't see a lot of false thing, but that's part of the deployment that's occurring in PAM Health right now. So we see readings every day. What we've learned is you need to provide a report. That's what's really happening now. So nobody has the time. In fact, a cardiologist, I don't have time to look at more data. Okay, you just killed my job. So go away, right? So the whole point is early warning, but someone should be able to say, look, I looked over, in fact, I have a patient, fascinating data, right? I noticed we can detect the time in bed, right? Because the indicator tells you that. So we started to measure that and we found the patient was in bed at 12 hours, next day was 13, 14, went all the way to 19, right? So you can see that track occurring and something is happening. And so then we suddenly dropped to 12 and the nurse came in and made some adjustments.
So walk me through the scenario. I'm a nurse on the floors treating all these other patients and only in your room for 25 hours in a day. So how do I know, how do I get a signal that there's something wrong?
Good question. So we send an alert. We can send an alert to your smartphone. So for the nurses, we have it go straight to the smartphone. And then we also have a triage display. So you can see all the patients in one display. And you can set the colors so that you can go red, green. You can say when it hits the threshold or has a boundary condition, then I'll change the color. And right now we're looking at, tachycardia, bradycardia kind of applications. We have apnea that's being produced right now that we can do that. It was actually developed for babies earlier in the development of this company. And fall detect, which is coming out next quarter. And then we will have arrhythmia and irregular heart rates. And so we have the raw data. So this is the growing path, right? That you see huge opportunity. And these are the upsell features that we want to be able to put on the table. Yes.
So looking at your competitive checklist, it looks like you are better than everyone else who's on the market. So why are you cheaper?
See, my background is Intel, okay? I started my career as a networking guy. Everything was cost. When I started my career at Intel, the first thing they did was, okay, it's a great idea, let's put it together. Now cut the cost in half and you still make any money if you can't get out, next guy. So I learned early in my days that you want to drive, you could have the best technology. But if you can't hit the right price point at that time and nobody can predict that, you're better off pushing that cost as quickly as you can down so you can roll it.
So that's not the sales cost, that's your internal cost of goods or burden cost, but
Right.
okay. But your target price for customers would be comparable or higher than?
Yeah, so our hardware right now is about $100, right? So we're charging, at least on the web right now, you can buy it for $250. We would probably drive that down to close to $200. And then there's a monthly subscription that can be anywhere from $10 to $25 a month.
And that's comparable to what other providers on your checklist are?
Yes, if you look at Fitbit, if you want to compete with wearables, they're in the $15.99 to $29.99.
So what John's saying is that there's price-based things or cost-based pricing, and there's value-based
With
pricing.
value-based pricing.
And are you doing value-based pricing as opposed to pricing based on cost? And he's hearing cost-based pricing, and that's making him squirm.
Right. I mean, the advantage is because we have a lower cost, we can adjust pricing. That's one of the things I wanted to get across. Now, we base it on value-based pricing, but right now we've got to look at where the market is, right? So we are helping nurses out, and we've got to look at the entire business model of a skilled nursing home. They run at a margin of close to 2 to 3%. And that's what I've got to work on to make sure I can put that device in there. And so it's based on the value. Our competitors, the two that I mentioned, the three I mentioned there, one is just as fall detect, right, which is Wire. The other two do heart rate and respiratory rate. Their updates are once every hour, which is nice, but if you didn't have something, we can do our updates every second. We cut through that information to send it out whenever you have another. So our pricing is based on value, but we've got to stay within the boundary of the medical value because you've got to play in that game in the beginning.
So you're selling to the facilities, you're not
Correct.
selling to the families who
Not
might
yet.
want extra care.
Right. We have it on the web and there are families that buy it every now and then. That's for pilot testing that we've enabled. But we're working directly B2B. Right,
So what
so,
I'm hearing you say is that the value you're creating for the facility is that you allow a whole bunch of billing to happen that wouldn't happen before.
right.
And so then how deep is your waiting list of people that want this?
So I've got a waiting list. As I said, that's one of the challenges where we're trying to raise the money quickly because we've got over 4 companies now interested. Each of them, yes, and each of them come with 10,000 beds. And at
So
$10 a
4
bed, that's
companies
100,000 a month
with
SaaS revenue.
10,000 beds each.
Yeah.
Yep. And what is it gonna take? What will it cost you to get from the 4 to the 40?
Mostly it's each of these guys come up with about 10 to 50,000 beds. The second guy actually has 90,000.
What is it gonna cost you in marketing?
In market.
To get the 40 customers?
So the key is to have one salesperson that's dedicated to this, which is what I'm doing right now. And I've identified a really key salesperson that knows the market really well and can penetrate these accounts. And a second person would be a field application person because you always get some weird problem. Most of it is Wi-Fi. And so we want to clear up that piece to get that through. So those are the 2 pieces we need to get this.
So the 2 million, 2.5 million gets you the salesperson, and that salesperson will get you how many customers?
She could probably do about 10 customers a year. Because of the part that is so exciting, I'm closing the contract with the first one this month. I want to close the second one next month. I'm trying to go a little slow because the risk when you build startups is you don't want to fall on your face. So you want to do a heck of a job getting the first 2 out really well. I'm resource limited, so I've got to be really careful how far.
What do you think your sales cycle really is in this space?
It's about 6 months. They generally do, once we get the first 3 trials through and that data is available, that's what I'm trying to do with UT Texas. I got calls from the Cleveland Clinic and they said, do you have a study? I didn't. I've done my own study. They want someone else's. But the moment they get that, things change. So we're at that tipping point for that to occur.
Great, I want to move on to the next presentation, but thank you so much, Sajal, for your work.
So everybody charge up. So we're gonna dial it way back, everybody, and just talk about food, not technology driven. A lot more basic, easy to understand. I'm Pete Ferrari. I'm the founder and president of Healthy for Life Foods. We have identified a rare sugar that we've named Jaka. And really the mission is simple, bring healthier foods into people's lives. See if we can advance this thing. You lied to me, Shane.
Okay, well, you know.
You lied to me, buddy.
There should be a little arrow there. You can press before.
This one? This happened in Austin too. I think he's got it out for me. Same technical difficulties in Austin.
Yeah, just press right here, whatever you.
All right, you want to stay over here, buddy? Help me out. So everybody knows this by now. Sugar is the new cigarette. Cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, cancer, hypertension, diabetes, asthma, liver disease, blurry vision. We all know this. And it's really interesting because according to the International Food Information Council, while 77% of Americans are trying to decrease their sugar intake, sugar is still preferred 4-1, due largely because of taste. That's why the CAGR for sugar is 8.02%, and the CAGR for all other sweeteners combined is only 4%. There's absolutely not been a remedy for the taste problem. Enter Jaka. So Jaka is actually a sugar. And if there's one thing we take away from the next 7 minutes, folks, I'd ask you to take away that this is a sugar. It's a monosaccharide. It's not a sugar alcohol. It's not a sweetener. It's sugar. So it cooks like sugar, it bakes like sugar, it tastes like sugar, it brulees like sugar. I actually bought some for everybody so y'all can taste it. You've got to really taste it for yourself. It's got all the formulaic badges that you would want, vegan friendly, non-GMO, halal certified, but it's also been proven in clinical trials, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled human trials, not rats and mice, to control appetite, burn body fat, and inhibit the body's ability to assimilate new fat. So it really is a paradigm shifting ingredient. The interesting thing about this is, according to IFIC, again, less than 15% of Americans have ever heard of this sugar. Now, I've been building out the infrastructure for this company for a couple of years. I actually think that number is less than 5%. By contrast, it's heavily used in Japan, probably the healthiest culture in the world. Japan uses this product in north of 4,000 products, to the extent that we use stevia here in this country. But stevia has now been shown to mutate DNA. So we're going to take a lesson from Japan on this. Mission is simple. We're going to be introducing Jaka-powered pouches of sugar and Jaka-powered beverages and Jaka-powered foods to market. And we're going to be allowing existing companies to extend their brands into the healthier for life foods type of environment as well. We're actually involved in a taste test recently down in California with a national beverage company. They created a Jaka-powered beverage and they put it head to head with one of their existing beverages that's doing really well in the marketplace. 9 out of 9 people in a blind taste test chose the new Jaka-powered beverage. That almost never happens. So they've expanded the discussions with us from 1 drink to a line of 5, 2 alcoholic and 3 non-alcoholic. So the sugar really can be formulated with versus some of the other alternatives out there. The market's huge. We're not going to try to boil the ocean. Retail grocery globally is $17 trillion. We'll get there. We're going to start in the direct-to-consumer world. $600 billion direct-to-consumer world. 80% of Americans are buying groceries online post-COVID. 46% of Americans are cooking more at home post-COVID. 30% of Americans will subscribe for a staple product like paper towels or sugar. So there's an MRR component. We did a lot of our market segmentation work and our market analysis work with VaynerMedia, who I'll talk about. We've determined that our life cycle in this environment will probably be 8.77 months. So it's a pretty nice revenue stream as far as that's concerned. Go-to-market is really very straightforward. It's direct-to-consumer selling product over the internet. If you look at what companies like Lipkit and Movement Watches and Chewy.com and Fashion Nova have done, they've gone from 0 to 100 to 500 million to $1 billion in sales at light speed due to the economies found within the supply chain, but also the return on ad spend. So it's really been something to watch. My favorite case study is Dollar Shave Club. Dollar Shave Club was incorporated 110 years after Gillette. They doubled Gillette's revenue in 3 years. Razor blades on the internet. So it's really a compelling model. We'll get to retail shelf space, but the brand recognition component, the brand build component, the land grab is going to take place in the direct-to-consumer model. For this, we went right to the kingpin of digital media, Gary Vaynerchuk. He's the Don Corleone of this environment. He works with Kraft, he works with Pepsi. I'm Italian, I got to go there. So yeah, he's the man. So we deployed our whole first round. We're in our second round now. Our first round was $250,000 at a $2 million valuation. We deployed almost all of that capital with VaynerMedia. Logo, naming, branding, theming, iconography, packaging, which you'll see, e-commerce infrastructure. It's all complete. This round funds inventory. Vayner is also teed up to do content creation with us and advertising. So the best in the world at reaching people in internet advertising is in our stable. We also went with another kingpin in the space, Phil Laboon. You've probably seen him in Forbes magazine. He's developed a very highly sophisticated funnel management system using funnels to guide people through the purchase process online and integrated fully with CRM for follow-up. So we've got LeadStacker and VaynerMedia, 2 world-class digital media companies that are in the stable ready to take us out. Cost of goods sold, 4.459 cents per ounce for the 16-ounce pouch of sugar, 0.449 cents per ounce for the 24-ounce pouch of sugar. We're going to retail at $1 an ounce, which threads the needle between stevia at 82 cents an ounce and monk fruit, which is the most expensive, at $1.26 an ounce. So we got like 50, 55 cents margins to play with. Gives me room if I need to do more penetration pricing, but we think that's a good place to start. We're not least expensive, we're not the most expensive. Return on ad spend starts out at 98 cents. Customer acquisition cost is $30.25. Average order value is $25. And as I mentioned, we think our average subscription lifetime will be 8.77 months. So we've got a unique opportunity once these algorithms start learning and start seasoning. When the algorithm starts learning from itself, things like return on ad spend and average order volume, they go up dramatically, exponentially in our favor very, very quickly, because really the algorithm is learning from itself at that point. And that's why these companies like Lip Kit and Gymshark and Fashion Nova are going to $1 billion in sales so quickly. Another component of the business plan that's important to me is a voucher program that we have designed. So to get a little bit serious, my dad was killed when I was 10 years old, and I spent a huge chunk of my life in rural poverty. So I remember what it's like not to eat every day. And, you know, as we all know, sugar-related illness hits the impoverished by far the hardest. And I know at the most basic level why that is. My grandmother, she'd go out to the backyard. I grew up on farmland. So my grandmother would go out to the backyard and she'd pick dandelions. And I'm 10 years old, and my little brother's 7. And she's making this nasty soup with dandelions, and I'm 10 years old. Well, the way she got me to eat it was cups and cups and cups of sugar. You know, by the same token, back in the 70s, when I was growing up, they never took meat off the shelves when it was rotting and turning blue and getting crispy. They just kept lowering the price. So when a pound of ground chuck would get to 10 cents a pound, we could afford it. And the way my grandmother got me and my little brother to eat rancid meat, cups and cups and cups of sugar. So sugar is super cheap, and it makes shitty food taste good. And poor people can't afford food that tastes good. So I've designed an apparatus and a mechanism to distribute this to the impoverished. It's a derivative of a patent that I co-authored in tech in the 90s, a 700-page patent. It's going to be eligible for subsidies. And one of our advisors is a career healthcare lobbyist. He's all over it. He's helping us get think tank visibility at the highest levels in the healthcare vertical. They've got a $1.72 trillion annual problem with obesity and obesity-related illness. They're dying to move the needle, get people off of poisonous cane sugar and onto something healthy. Segues into moats. The voucher program is probably the moatiest part of the business because moatiest, I don't even know if that's a word, but it's the moatiest part of the business because it's patent, it could be patent protected. It's a process that somebody would have to think up before they could emulate it. As well, we've been developing products. We've got 4 products that are done with development. They're literally on the 1-yard line. So when I yell snap and we launch, 4 touchdowns scored immediately to give us a moat. We've got network and stickiness effect moat that you would expect in a direct consumer model. And then something that also gives us a pretty good bit of moat is the health and well-being component. At the bottom, you see the ecosystem. We spent a year developing health and well-being modules to add value for the consumer. So a series of action plans and interviews and delta analyses and charts and graphs that people are going to get as bundled with Jaka so that they can find a way towards a lifestyle of good health and well-being or complement their existing lifestyle of good health and well-being. This kind of leans into a Deloitte study. Deloitte studied $1 trillion of buying power in this country, and they found that for 75% of the decision to buy a product, it has nothing to do with the product itself. So 75% of the decision to buy this sugar has nothing to do with sugar, which baffles me, but it's Deloitte. It's all about CSR. It's all about ESG. It's all about charitable contributions. It's about the company behind the product. It's about the founders behind the company behind the product. It's about adding value for people, adding value in their lives. So these health and well-being modules that we spent a year developing are going to give us what we think is a lot of value add as we blitzkrieg the market and take over as a thought leader. There really is no competition. Everybody's seen the news now. I mean, Splenda is sucralose. Sucralose was downgraded by the FDA from caution to avoid because it causes leukemia. Equal is aspartame. Aspartame causes cancer. Swerve is erythritol. Erythritol causes heart attacks, strokes, and tachycardia. Sweet and low saccharin, carcinogenic. They're all, the solution is worse than the problem. If I didn't have Jaka for my coffee, I would eat regular sugar because at least it's natural. This other stuff, as it's contrived, you don't know what's going into it. So we really don't have a heck of a lot of competition out there. It's a unique opportunity. The revenues go from 17.7 million in year 1 projected to 30.8 million in year 2 to 67.6 million in year 3 to 120.1 million in year 4 to 212 million in year 5. That's the power of the internet model. The return on ad spend has got just, it's not even a hockey stick, it's a rocket ship. Something really important to take away here is you see that I've only got the core value in these numbers. I stole Eric Anderson's thunder from Topgolf here. I'm a big fan of his. I watched what he did with Topgolf. He basically invented an industry. He made golf a lifestyle play. And when Eric Anderson was putting together his financials for Topgolf, he distinguished between what he called core value and option value. So all he put in his financial models was money that people were going to pay to go to Topgolf and hit a ball with a club. No advertising revenue, no co-branded revenue, no distribution revenue, nothing, not regard to the asset, the land, nothing. He called core value, somebody swinging a golf club. Everything else was option value or back pocket revenue. So that's what I've done here. This is only direct to consumer revenue. The voucher program, which could easily eclipse these revenues, is not in here. Co-branding and distribution, it's not in here. So this is just the direct to consumer revenues. What I'm trying to do is set us up for a happiness problem there, a liquidity event. Just got enough, we got enough in the quiver there where we're taken care of no matter what happens. Oh, I see what, yeah, I think I see what you did. There you go. The team, it's as you'd expect. This will be the 5th company I've built in the 4th different industry in 30 years. Telephone company, 3 tech companies in Atlanta in the 90s in San Francisco, up to real estate development. We've got a pretty eclectic board of advisors. Dr. Rona Applebaum is the first ever chief science officer at Coca-Cola. She's my favorite advisor. She's a monster in the space. Talk to her every week. She's just been great. You've got Dr. Tom Moran, the inventor of craisins for Ocean Spray, literally took them into a food products company from a juice company. Dorn Wenninger ran the country of Mexico, $11 billion P&L for Walmart. My favorite new advisor is John Majeski. He's the founder and chairman of a private equity group out of California. And not only has Portola Valley Partners agreed to be on the board, but they're also investing in the company. And as everybody knows at the table here, private equity groups almost never invest in companies out of this early stage. So I didn't know John before this enterprise. I've known him for 2 years now. Everything we have together is earned. He's not my buddy. He's not hooking me up. So it's a relationship that I really value. We were also just chosen as one of 50 companies by Oracle to participate in their accelerator program. So we're going to be implementing Oracle ERP enterprise-wide. We're in our 2nd round, $1.5 million at a $5 million pre-money valuation. I've raised about $550, and you can see the use of funds there is largely just to fund inventory. Exits are any number of targets. You've got really interesting dynamics with the competitive landscape, as well as the big food and beverage companies and the private equity groups who are stepping in this business. Swerve was purchased by Whipstitch, a big private equity group out of New England, but for 14.8x EBITDA. Our buyout numbers based upon EBITDA would be $600 million in year 4 at 40 million EBITDA and $1.19 billion in year 5 at 80 million EBITDA. So they're pretty strong numbers. The 17.7 in year 1 would give us the legitimacy we would need to try to go public. I'm just not sure. We'll obviously do what's in the best interest of the investors. Gotten a lot accomplished. We're ready to really hit the switch and launch. And really this round just funds inventory, and we're looking for strategic and like-minded partners that want to really do right by people and help a lot of struggling families. Thank you.
You pitched that Kretzer thing a week ago.
I did. Were you there?
I was there.
Did it sound the same?
No, you adjusted it a bit. You have a style that sounds the same, but the content changed a little bit.
Yeah.
But they asked a question, and I have actually been hunting, trying to understand. The sugar is allulose?
It is. Psychose allulose, correct.
Yeah, and allulose seems to have some problems in Europe. And so I'm trying to understand, as I was Googling, shit was coming up on the thing, and I was confused.
Shit will do that.
Or giving me it's a natural thing, and then all that was happening. So can you dive into that a little bit?
I'm happy to. Yeah, it's actually not, contrary to what may be popping up, and I've seen the same things you have, it's not banned in Europe, and it's not having trouble in Europe. It's under the process of evaluation and approval in Europe. So the European community is much more militant than the FDA in this country. This sugar's got FDA GRAS status, generally recognized as safe in America. That's their stamp of approval. The equivalent in Europe is a much more daunting process. I would suggest that because maybe it's a little less corrupt. So it takes years to actually get that approval. About 3 years ago, Matsusani, Ingredion, and Tate & Lyle formed a consortium. These are 3 different manufacturers. They actually formed a consortium, and they applied with the European community to get that approval. It's been 3 years in the making. Applebaum, Dr. Applebaum here, who knows people, she's made some calls, and this year, 2024, it's going to get approved in Europe. So it's about, the timeline's about right. It takes about 3 years. It's been a little over 3 years. It's going to get approved because it's a natural sugar. Enzymic approach to extracting it from fructose. It's got, no chemical components to it. It dissipates in the large intestine. It has no physiological impact on a human being. So it's really, it's going to be hard to deny it. And I think we'll see that coming here shortly.
Okay, and you keep using the word launch that suggests you have no early revenue. Am I correct?
That is correct. I've got POs from 3 companies, which you saw on a prior slide, Taste of Freedom Beverage, Chips Cookie House, and Atomic Coffee Roasters, 1,100 kilograms a month of Jaka. I just got those 3 POs, so that's plus or minus 29,000 in revenue, but we are pre-launch D2C, that's correct. I got to fund inventory. Worst thing you can do in an internet model is get caught with no inventory. It's one click and you'll never see that person again. So our first run is 351,000 packages, 199,000 kilograms. So I've got enough to serve the quarterly run and what we project we're gonna push.
What you just said confuses me because you don't have to do broadcasts to get people. And so if you understand your sub-market, you can spearfish instead of broadcast and learn the foundations of what words convert,
Oh, yeah.
which is what I'm sort of expecting, but I guess you're doing B2B more than B2C if you're getting those big orders.
Well, we're going D2C over the internet, speaking with people one-to-one. We did all of our market segmentation work with VaynerMedia, one of the best marketing agencies in the world, not just for content and advertising. We identified 5 segments of market that we're going after: head of household, trend chaser, fitness fanatic. So we will be producing content specifically for those 5 stovepipes. We project the 351,000 packages based on that advertising effort on ad spend is going to push. We're going to push it. So we're expecting wild results. Average order value of $25 at a time and growing. Yeah.
Great, I'm gonna cut it off there. We are out of time.
Thank you,
but
guys.
Thank you so much.
I got you.
The human race has been addicted to wood for.
Ready to go?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of say something first.
Sorry, I just clicked it and it started going, but you're welcome.
It was, thanks for having me. Nice to be able to pitch everybody. My name is Lonnie Hayward. I'm the CEO and founder of Timberwise Group. We tried to take a lot of information and put it into a 9-minute presentation, so we thought this was probably the best way to cover everybody's bases, so enjoy the video.
A very long time. Due to years of overharvesting, governments have had to take drastic measures to ensure our forests aren't damaged beyond repair. For years, we have seen tighter restrictions being placed on the harvesting of the world's rainforests. Now we find ourselves with those same type of restrictions being placed on all terrestrial forests around the world. And yes, that includes most of North America. Since 2010, both Canada and the United States have been reducing the number of permits they make available for harvesting. Plus, they have increased their stumpage fees on the trees that are harvested. So with diminishing supply and increasing fees, the overall cost of harvesting is going up. As a result, we are seeing mills shutting down. But that's not all. In 2021, over 120 world leaders met in Glasgow, Scotland at the COP26 summit. Over 100 countries signed an agreement to end deforestation by 2030. By taking this positive step, they solved one problem and created another one. To add even more pressure, since 2010, emerging countries like China and India have driven up the overall demand by an additional 15%. The U.S. Forest Products Annual Report is now forecasting a 40% increase by 2030. That's a 40% increase to the already $800 billion forest industry. Now that we've shown you the magnitude of the problem, let's take a look at our solution. The perfect solution is hidden underwater, behind the more than 66,000 hydro dams around the world. These reservoirs were created when the hydro dams were first flooded. Not only are these freestanding forests perfectly preserved due to the lack of oxygen, but due to the hydrostatic pressure. The deeper the tree, the more compressed and stronger the tree becomes. As of today, there is currently over $135 billion in standing forests in these reservoirs. Unlike harvesting terrestrial forests, harvesting from underwater forests have far more benefits with almost no negative effects. The first and obvious benefit is that we are harvesting real wood, not some substitute product. Secondly, many environmental reports have determined that hydro dam reservoirs are a major producer of greenhouse gases. So as we harvest these trees, we are solving this problem. Thirdly, in many locations, the conventional practice of indigenous fishing has been disrupted and obliterated when the dam is filled. What remains is an expansive reservoir filled with standing trees, rendering fishing with nets or lines unfeasible. By clearing these trees, we can create fishing grounds, enabling local communities to revive their fishing industry. Next, many reservoirs are used by commercial ferries and boaters. As a result, each year an average of 300 people are killed when colliding with a hidden tree. Fifth, in actuality, there are well over 160,000 reservoirs globally, of which 66,000 of them are considered large sources of timber. This means there are more than enough trees underwater to help with our current needs. Our hope is that by focusing on this source, we can buy time for our terrestrial forests to recover. The sixth benefit. By harvesting this source of timber, we can reopen mills and create new and replace old harvesting jobs. 7. Every hydro dam takes precautions to make sure that trees and other debris do not enter into their turbines. Removing these forests will solve a big part of their problem. Now that we have seen this long-term source, let's look at our options for harvesting it. For years, there were only a couple of ways to harvest underwater timber. They were slow and couldn't compete with terrestrial logging. At some point, a better way of harvesting had to be created. In the late 2000s, a prototype was built and then deployed in Brazil. It successfully harvested 300% more trees than any other method. This 60-foot prototype was able to harvest over 150 trees per day with a crew of 3 men. Many of the larger trees in this reservoir were 6 to 8 feet in diameter and 40 to 60 feet tall. After proving that the prototype could reliably harvest these giants, it was time to make it bigger and stronger. Introducing the Titan Arm. This upgraded version can delve down to 120 feet, surpassing current methods by 50 feet. With technological advancements, we harvest quickly and efficiently like never before. New vision systems allow us to swiftly and precisely locate trees. Mobile side thrusters allow for quick positioning and harvesting without the need to re-anchor. Since the arm deploys in the center of the barge, the unit remains stable while harvesting large trees, even in rough waters, a feat unmatched by other systems. Harvesting can occur within a 360-degree range without repositioning, and the cutting head can handle trees up to 8 feet in diameter. Now that we have the perfect source and the right machine, we search for the best location to start harvesting. After reviewing many locations, we selected the Itapu project in Paraguay as our initial location. This reservoir contains many timber species that are in high demand globally. An independent assessment estimated the timber value at this site to be in the range of $200 to $350 million. Itapu Binational, currently the world's second largest hydroelectric power supplier, has been exceptionally cooperative throughout the environmental assessments and feasibility study process. Additionally, the support from the Paraguayan government has been outstanding. They have arranged meeting with representatives from Brazil, Panama, and Argentina. All have shown a keen interest in introducing Timberwise's operations to their respective reservoirs. Both Paraguay and Itapu Binational have expressed a strong commitment to being an environmental leader. Currently, we have 7 letters of intent to buy all the timber we can supply. Since sending samples from Paraguay to one of these buyers, we have discussed an exclusive deal for them to purchase all the timber from this site. Our aim is to secure financial commitments from buyers for the exclusive rights to the timber in each area in the future, enabling us to self-fund our projects as we expand. As we add new locations, these buyers will have the opportunity to reserve their timber supply exclusively. Among our buyers is a manufacturer that supplies furniture to major chains, including Ashley's Furniture. Getting this project up and operating is just the beginning. We have what we feel is a simple and effective plan to take control of this source of timber. Many concessions are currently being worked by small-time operators, many of whom are native to their area. All are hindered by low production and the inability to access the deeper part of the tree. Since their methods are only harvesting down to 80 feet, this means that a lot of valuable timber is being left behind. Every operator and concession holder is interested in increasing production numbers and income. By introducing them to our Titan technology, we are greatly increasing their numbers, selling and distributing their timber. By forming a joint venture and introducing the Titan technology to their project, we will have a quick and efficient way to expand. Now, let's turn our attention to our team, the backbone of Timberwise. It's often said that one should invest in people, not companies, and we couldn't agree more. We take pride in the diverse group of individuals who have not only invested in Timberwise, but are also instrumental in helping us realize our vision. Our team is comprised of forestry executives, environmental standards advisors, heavy equipment manufacturers, government representatives, seasoned underwater harvesting experts, global timber buyers and distributors, shipping and logistics professionals, and corporate operations specialists. What truly sets us apart is that every member of the TimberWise team has truly backed our company, and each operates under a performance-based contract. This means that our success directly translates into their rewards, reinforcing our collective commitment to achieving excellence. As of the 1st of March 2024, we launched our Rate D campaign to raise $25 million. We will be using this money the following way. The first $1 million will be raised at 25 cents per share. This money will be used to prepare the groundwork to start operations. The next 10 million will be raised at 50 cents per share. This amount will be used to start harvesting using current methods until the Titan arm has been built. This will allow us to create a revenue stream more quickly. The remaining 14 million will be raised at 75 cents per share. We will use this money to manufacture the technology and increase production. We thank you for looking at TimberWise, and we look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Can I answer any questions?
Unusual in a bunch of ways. It's very unusual to be proposing the valuation of your company way out to the future, which is what it felt like you just did.
Mhm.
So it's a price round very early with stages that set valuation, which takes places not utilizing the market. Why are you choosing that path?
Because right now, in order for us to start on this first project, we feel that a tiered system is probably a little more attractive than going for 25 up front. We've had a few different options that have come to us, but it affected our structure too much and what we wanted to do long term. So we felt that doing it in a tiered format like this was more advantageous. Of course, if somebody comes in with the right proposal, we could.
Normally, you'd have a lead investor that was helping you engage with the market, so you had clarity on where you were raising from.
Yes.
Who's your lead investor?
We have two right now that we're talking to. One is a fund out of England that's also based in Canada. And then we have another group out of Texas that we're talking to.
But no commitments, right?
We haven't closed them.
Gary?
What's your background? My background is in forestry, and it's also in oil and gas to a certain degree. I've worked with a lot of companies in China in the finance industry. That's primarily my background.
Got one more.
Sure.
What's the reason that some political organization won't allow you to go in there and cut those trees?
We haven't had any resistance when it comes to that. We would be very choosy on which particular country we would go into, just obviously for stability's sake. Most of the countries we've talked to so far, being Panama, Ecuador, Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay, are very, very welcoming, and the contracts are very much in our favor. The way we set it up is we have to distribute 25% to local markets, and then the other 75% gets to be shipped out. It gives us a certain amount of control over the technology. If they were to try to sabotage it, it's quite different in a sense that whoever controls the technology controls the pathway from getting all the timber.
So help us understand where you're at in the process.
Okay.
The technology exists and is currently being used, or
No, it is not.
it needs to be built.
Correct.
You
So the
just have
original.
contracts that would allow you to come in once it's built.
Exactly. So the way we've kind of built this backwards. The reason being is that the prototype has already proven itself in Brazil. And the original creator of the technology, he had inventor syndrome, like a lot of us see. And he tweaked it, and he was unable to do much as far as setting up the industry. When I ended up buying the patent on that original technology, my original goal was to build the tech and then sell it to guys within the industry. But what I found is there was no real major front runner in the industry. There was only a couple guys doing this, and there was lots of mom and pops that were going out with underwater chainsaws and cutting down 5 trees a day at between $1,000 and $5,000 a tree. So I thought, well, somebody, we're coming to this crossroads within the forestry sector where we're getting less and less and demands going up. Because of that, somebody's got to get control of this industry quickly and find a way to, like trademarking and all this sort of thing. So when you own this, even your competitors will have to go through you. So we decided what we'll do is we're going to work backwards. I'm going to go to the end buyer. So I end up meeting with Mitsui, Mitsubishi, and Sumitomo, the largest buyers in the world of timber. And one of the guys that's on our board, Eric Boycott, used to be the head of lumber distribution for all of Japan. He's now on our board of directors. So we have, and as you can see, most of the commitments are out of China. So they've joined our board of directors. They have an interest in seeing us succeed. And then we went to Caterpillar and had one of their engineers join us on the board. So he looks after engineering, shipping, logistics. Then we have two guys that have joined us from West Fraser, which is the world's largest lumber company. And all these people have invested in us as well, but also joined because they see the potential. So
I just heard you say I have no staff, I only have partners.
That's
Is that
right.
Correct.
That's correct. Yeah, everybody has a stake in the company. Basically, the rule of thumb in our company is if you want to get paid, then bring in the money to pay you. It's very, very simple. If you believe in it, then you'll invest in it. And if you have the pedigree and the cash behind it, you're motivated. And that's the way every single person on that board is. They've all got, and the bottom, just to kind of answer something, but the gentlemen that were at the bottom, the top or the bottom four are all seasoned underwater loggers. These guys understand this business. So we're not starting into something that is foreign to us.
So amongst that partnership, you can't raise $1 million.
Yeah, well, we've raised 750,000 so far privately, and we're just starting this because we just want to launch it. What we were looking at originally is showcasing it on one of the sites in Vancouver, just outside of Vancouver, so people could touch it, feel it, watch it, operate.
Yeah.
And we had talked to a few of the First Nations or Aboriginal groups up there about doing that, and we're still in negotiation. As you understand, they move slow. So it's been a bit of a exercise in patience, and COVID didn't help.
And you're out of British Columbia?
Vancouver, yeah.
Yeah. And have you talked to the Valhalla Angels in Calgary yet?
I haven't, no.
Oh, I really urge you to do that.
Yeah.
They're the most promiscuous group of angels that I know of. And they understand global things because essentially it's oil money. And so they understand the hand wave that you just did. They will get.
They'll understand it.
So I would very much suggest that. You have structure there that makes, I would expect from my little baby world, a bunch of angels in Seattle to get confused. And so they would not get confused the same way that I think people do.
Yeah, it's funny, people that really get excited about this are typically people within the forestry sector because they get it. It is a very simple industry. I mean, there's a lot of pieces to it, of course. But, cutting a tree and then delivering it is, the easiest way to explain it. But to have the technology you can do it underwater, there's not a lot of competition.
Right.
And now that we're getting more harvesting, terrestrial logging with helicopters, it's getting too expensive, even for the forestry people. So now where we couldn't have fit in 10 years ago, 20 years ago, now we're a viable option.
Great, let's move on to our next presenter. Thank you so much, Lonnie, for that wonderful presentation.
Hi, I'm Buddy Lyons. I'm the CEO of Intact Medical. We are like acoustic wearables for predictive medicine. And we have a couple of different things going on here. We launched a product last year called Previs EA, and we have a new platform that we filed 2 510Ks on in 2025. The launch of Previs EA, we expect revenue generation somewhere around the June, July front time period. The current pipeline that we have is represents about $400 million in total revenue. 15 hospitals and 8 systems that we're working with right now. But we also have an evaluation at HCA Hospital coming up. We're expanding the sales force from 18 to 32 by mid-year. The news on Previs AI, which is we'll talk about, which is an acoustic IoT platform. those two, 510Ks we're planning on filing. One of them is on the follow-up product, Previs EA. The other one is for, Previs, AI Lung, which is a product to do, monitoring for patients to predict bronchospasms and asthma. Our funding plan is, we closed out a $2 million note. We are opening up a $1.5 million price round soon, led by Intact Inside Investors, probably our last round lead. We have about over half that committed already to the thing. The details, actually the proposed details are going out tonight, so I'll let you know very soon what those are. And we believe that this money will take us through being cash flow positive in the first half of next year. So the problem here initially with Previs EA is a problem called postoperative ileus. You know, we're in predictive medicine. Postoperative ileus is acute paralysis of the GI tract that begins 2 to 7 days after surgery. And it's the leading cause of readmission. It's the leading cause of prolonged length of stay. Here, the problem with it is that patients can't be identified. You don't know which patient is going to develop an ileus, right? This is what the device does. So all these protocols are reactive. You got a couple of ways you can do it. You can do traditional surgery is delayed oral refeeding. Your surgeon will not feed you until he thinks that bowel function is returned. He'll keep you in the hospital for like ever, 8 to 12 days. Early oral refeeding is more ERAS oriented. You feed patients on the day of surgery, almost a day, and you let them go as soon as they can ambulate, pain control on oral medications, white count's okay. You do not wait until you believe the patient's bowel function is returned. You go ahead and let them go home. Problem with these is that with delayed oral refeeding, you're holding 70 to 80% of your patients in the hospital for much longer than you need to. Holding a patient in the hospital, I don't know why old people think this, being in a hospital is not a good thing. It is a dangerous place to be, and you want to get out of there as soon as you can. And you're losing money. And so the hospital is losing a ton of money on these things. These are in Medicare cases. Or here, you lose less money, you got a lower length of stay, but it's driving a 20% readmission rate. You're sending your patient home too early. That's not good for a patient either. So neither one of these really work, right? So if you can identify those patients, you can solve that problem. That's what we do. At post-op hour 12, the device identifies that patient and tells you whether that patient's at risk for post-operative ileus or not. Very simple to use. You just put it on the patient's abdomen, any quadrant, wherever you want to. You press the button within an hour. This is all within an hour of surgery. You walk away, you come back 12 hours later, and there's your answer. High risk, low risk. Use an acoustic biomarker to do that. That's a presentation in itself that we can go into later. But the benefits are now, instead of just running people through protocols, because you don't know what else to do, the personalized post-op care. If you're a low-risk patient, you can go ahead and be fed and go home early, reducing your length of stay. If you're a high-risk patient, they're not going to push you out. You stay appropriate amount of time, you get over the ileus, and then you go home, reducing readmissions. So we're bringing these two groups of surgeons together, right? Not an easy task. And one of the things we found out when we got out there marketing it, those guys were like, it's a religion. Doesn't matter what the science is, it is a religion. And that was one of the hurdles. But this increases patient safety. It's better for the hospital because they make more money. Everybody's happy, right? Works out better. So I created this slide right here while I was sitting right there. So how do I explain this to people? You think you're running out there and you're going to go launch your product and everybody's going to just run to you. Not so. Not with this kind of technology, and not new, and not with this thing come out of nowhere. These people don't get much, when you're a colorectal surgeon or a general surgeon doing major abdominal surgery, you don't really get a whole lot of technology. If you're a spinal surgeon, a cardiovascular surgeon or something like that, they get it all the time. These guys don't get a lot. They're not used to this stuff. Nobody ever thought we could do this because you know what? This actually uses audio, and they're taught in school that audio is worthless, and they're right. It is worthless in doing anything diagnostically or predictively. But this doesn't really use audio. It uses an acoustic biomarker, and that nuance right there was difficult to overcome. Reimbursement doesn't have reimbursement. Strictly on a value prop. That plays really well into a value-based system. I'll show you in a second. Deeply rooted protocols. Holy crap. These guys, man, you say, this is better for your patient. But finally, after you hit them about 5 times, they start going, I don't really have to send every patient home. No, you don't, doctor. You can send some of them home early. We're not taking it all away from you. You do what you want to. And they start coming around. That's what we've done. The Premise Assurance Program too, which is where we let them try this. They buy devices, it's a long story, but they buy devices from us. We establish some baselines. We run some patients for them. If we fail to give them a value prop, we buy them back from them. Administrators love this. It gives, when the colorectal department goes to them, it gives them some firepower to do this. This is how we kind of show them what the value prop is. This is case mix index and average length of stay. We base it on hospitals who are in the same, do the same difficulty of cases. And you can say, this is Tampa General right here. They're a fourth quartile hospital in average length of stay, and we know why, because they keep their patients on clear liquids for 4 days before they feed them. That is abysmal practice of medicine. And then this is what we can do for them. We can lower their length of stay by approximately this much. And this is for very effectively, and this little chart right here took us almost a year to come up with to be able to market this product. But it's finally, it's there and it's effective. And then we run that through this is a third-party model that developed for us. So in intestinal surgery at this hospital, we could save them $10 million a year. In major abdominal surgery, which is, there are about 10 times more major abdominal surgeries in the United States than just intestinal surgery. This number balloons up dramatically. So, oops, where did we go? That was the slide that other was supposed to. So, how big is the market? About 6.3 million major abdominal surgeries in the United States. It's about 4 billion. UK is about the same dollar market. Asia, we have some people interested in Asia and Japan and China. We don't have great numbers on that, so we have no idea. We really don't know. Europe's a great market though, because that's where ERAS was born. And they have really, really high readmission rates in Europe. And so we're good with that. It's a single-use device. We're moving to a multi-use device soon. It's sold directly to hospitals. I told you about the reps and the rep expansion. We engage surgeon champions. It's about $600. I'll get you at least a 4 to 10 times ROI. The current margins at scale would be about 75–80% range. The margins on a multi-use device would be greater than 95%. We can reuse the device you're going to see in just a second at least 30 times. We may can use up to 100. We're doing some studies now to see how many times we can reuse that device. Who we got on the hook? So we got these 8 sites right here. We got a clinical trial running at, and that clinical trial is really just for marketing data and things that doesn't have anything to do with regulatory. They're very high-profile sites. Within this, there's these hospitals. There are 100 hospitals in their system, right? And once you get into Mayo Clinic, you can go into all Mayo Clinics, hospitals all over the country. Then we have 4 who we're getting ready to do the Premise Assurance Program with and under VAC. We have an additional 12 that we're working with to get to that far, and then the HCA evaluation in mid-year. And this is sort of the list of these hospitals here. This represents, these hospitals that we're working directly with now represent nationally about 300 hospitals. And these are the other ones right here. The numbers that you see here in major abdominal surgery are just for that one hospital, not for their system. It's just that one. So that's where the sort of the $400 million opportunity comes in just what we're working with now. So what do we do? Well, we think we'll do about $500,000 in sales this year. That's about 1,100 devices. We'll exit the year with about $2 million runway. The way that the pipeline is beginning to turn over after many months of prepping it and seeing them, we believe we can do about 15 million next year. So this led us, our domain expertise led us to Premise AI, which is a platform, an AI platform. And Premise AI, this device is a little bit different in the sense that nothing is done on this device. All it does is collect sound and send it to the cloud. It has great advantages. It's more accurate. It's continually improved performance. It's half the cost of a Premise AI device just to build the thing. It's we're moving from single use to multi-use with this device, so you can use some margins. We're going to file a 510K on this probably second half of 25. The heart and lung data. We do heart and lung study. We've analyzed the lung data. It really, what it did is validate this platform as a rapid development platform. We released the lung data on December of last year. We'll file a 510K in asthma by sometime in the second half of next year. So what we do that other people don't do in asthma is the current market right now, it is self-monitoring. So patients have to blow into a spirometer or a peak flow meter 6 or 8 times a day. That's what drives this almost $2 million ER visits and those hospitalizations, because they don't do it. Here, you can put it on their chest, they can monitor, we can take the lung sounds. Right now, we can get within 5% of a spirometry meeting, which is well within clinical acceptance. We'll drive that down to probably less than 2. And they can just wear this device and they don't have to blow into anything. And they can go about their lives. Management team, we have a very seasoned management team. Dr. John Cromwell is the brainchild behind most of the technologies that we develop here. Here on the sales side has been Jason Forcione, who's the owner of Clinical Technologies. This company is a CSO in the Midwest who covers 20 states. They're a major shareholder in Intact too. They stepped up in the last round in the convertible note and got a big chunk of that too. Sean Fordick's got, he's our sort of strategic advisor on the board. He's got 6 exits under his belt. And then we have even deeper sales management here. It's been a challenge, I'll be honest with you, to go out there and get those names on that board. Now, every name we get, it's easier to get the next one. And right now, you're working through hospital processes and fact committees and things like that to get to revenue. But I believe by June, those first ones will start coming on. We'll start getting those into the Provis Assurance Program, be generating revenue. And they'll start coming on after that. So we closed the convertible note. We're going to do a price round, I say April. Hopefully we'll have that finalized in about a week. We believe that's the last money we'll ever raise. We believe we'll get to break even in the first half of next year. We have a lot of flexibility about our future, what we do with our future products. The Provis AI platform, which is what's great about it, it's already built and paid for. So we don't have any more investment in that really, except to build the beta unit of the device. We don't have to do anything alone until we want to, but we'll probably do that in the second half of the year out of revenue or the first half of next year. And we can develop the device very simply. It's not the device that's the technological problem. It is the platform, and the platform is done. 2 510Ks, and we'll do a CE mark on Provis AI Gut, which we skip with Provis EA. We have some distributors over there who are very interested in doing that product over there. That will double our market size there as well. And that's our story. What questions you have?
So I'm a little bit confused about your market analysis because you're articulating the surgeries, and if I'm understanding, you're avoiding the surgeries.
No.
Okay, so I have my operation.
Yes.
I go home and.
No.
And.
That's not the steps. You have your operation. After your operation, they're going to take a Provis EA device and put it on your abdomen. Okay. All right. And then at post-op hour 12, that's going to tell that physician whether you're at high risk or low risk for the leading cause of readmission and prolongments of study. So then he's going to know, what do I do with you? Well, if you're low risk, I'm going to go ahead and feed you today. And as soon as you can walk and your pain's controlled on meds, I'm going to let you out. I'm not going to wait till your bowel function returns, right? Because I know you're okay. And obviously, if you're high risk, right, then they're going to keep you low.
I think the problem is that when you talk about total addressable market, you, I think, are including the abdominal surgery, which you're not replacing, you're adding to.
We're doing it in every abdominal surgery.
Right, but when you talk about addressable market, usually to investors like us, we look into, if you owned 100% of the market you're targeting, you would have that revenue, but you're not. This is your partners have that revenue.
This is the total addressable market for this device. I think it's a semantics argument.
Okay.
If you take 6.3 million surgeries and you say that, you say, okay, we're involved in 6.3 million surgeries. And
That's very relevant. And then you multiply that by how much revenue per surgery
Right.
you think you get.
So $600.
Which is not the number I was able to find, and that's what I got.
And $600 is, but I thought $600 was the price of the device, and you said the device can be used 30 times, right?
Well, in the initial version we have right now, it's a single use thing. So you use the device, and you let go of it. And we're moving toward that multi-use device when we move to Provis AI. We couldn't have done that. We couldn't have done this like when we started the development of Provis AI. The technology wasn't available to do that. No.
Hi, my name is Yang Yu, and my company is Maple Therapeutics. After 20 plus years in the pharmaceutical industry at Eli Lilly, Boehringer Ingelheim, and Ingelheim, and Ferring, I started Maple Therapeutics last year. being in Seattle is something special. I don't know if you know all this. Seattle is the birthplace for Cialis, a drug that Lilly took over from the startup called ICOS. For me, the prostaglandin pathway, that's what I'm presenting today. It holds the key for discovering revolutionary new drugs. For many of us throughout a lifetime, sometimes we can relate to the guy holding the axe. To me, this cartoon tells me two things. One, there are always many solutions to the problem. And the second, it's all about the timing. For these two diseases with huge unmet medical needs, both are billion-dollar markets. One is called endometriosis, and the second is pulmonary fibrosis. Both are diseases to which there are options, but they are not desirable. Indeed, these options are limited. I'm showing here, essentially the current solutions are like sledgehammers. Take endometriosis drug, for example. It's called GnRH antagonist. Pfizer is marketing it. Today, 5 years, that one happened to be from AbbVie. 5 years after approval, only 1% of eligible patients are taking it. So can we find, the reason being that there is a severe side effects. So can we find a better, more precise option for these drugs? And our answer is yes, and that lies to the prostaglandin F2 platform. Prostaglandins are a group of biologically active lipid compounds. And our platform, the PGF2 platform, works as follows. This is a very intense slide, apologies, but if we can manage to get through it, everything else I said would make sense. When cells are exposed to inflammation conditions, as you see, the yellow floating part is a part of cell membrane. When exposed to inflammatory conditions, they make a chemical called arachidonic acid, which is then converted to prostaglandins. A key enzyme in that conversion is called cyclooxygenase, or COX for short. The inhibiting COX has been one of a human's most successful drug enterprises. As you can see, ibuprofen, if you have taken Aleve or Excedrin, you know they work well. Efforts to make a better drug by targeting the COX-2 version, however, has not been worked out well. In fact, Merck had to withdraw the Vioxx. It may sound familiar. And the reason being that inhibiting prostaglandin completely, it's not desirable. There are multiple types of prostaglandins. I show PGF, PGH2, I2, D2, and so on. PGI2 here, for example, is essential for kidney and cardio diseases, which is why COX-2, by inhibiting prostaglandin completely, it causes heart attacks. PGD2, for example, it's considered as a good prostaglandin. It may have anti-inflammatory effects. So blocking all of these is not desirable. Well, what if we can target a specific type of prostaglandin? In our case, it's PGF2. Our platform is targeting the receptor of F2. It's called FP. So that is where it works. PGF2, the reason we are interested is because it plays a critical role in a number of diseases, such as pain associated with uterine contraction. The uterus is loaded with prostaglandin at certain conditions. So in fibrosis, and they may play a role in inflammatory conditions. Today, our portfolio the pipeline is made of the first lead indication for endometriosis, second for pulmonary fibrosis, and we also have exploratory conditions. Now, if targeting PGF2 alpha is such a good idea, why don't we already have a drug? Well, the challenge lies in the technology. Targeting it has been efforts for the last couple of decades. This chart showing from 1999, a company called Alcon consistently made, a number of companies have made the PGF2 inhibitors. Up to 2 years ago, all of these earlier compounds are not potent enough, they are not selective enough, none of that has made it to the clinic. In 2022, Ferring Pharmaceutical, company based in Switzerland, has made a compound that is 50 times more potent than the next. Now, for those who are not familiar, in this table on the top, this IC50 shows the potency. The lower the number, the stronger the chemical. Yeah, it is. So today we have molecules potent and selective, and we licensed this molecule from Ferring Pharmaceutical. So the next question is, how do we make a drug or a number of drugs out of this platform? This is the drug discovery pipeline or funnel, as I want to call it, the FDA 505(b)(1) pathway that is for developing based on a new chemical entity or NCE. This would be the most lucrative enterprise. On the other hand, it's long, it's risky. The approach that we're taking is that we already have a molecule from Ferring. By the way, it started at 2017. Today, we have a molecule that's close to a preclinical candidate. We aim to achieve clinical proof of concept at phase 2. At this stage, we'll identify a partner, a pharma partner, and pursue an exit of that specific asset. So our goal is, our operation is working from this stage to here. So our goal is in a year and a half, we're going to have an IND submission to FDA. And in 3 to 4 years, we'll achieve clinical proof of concept. With that, I have a number of slides for both indications, but given the time, I know we wouldn't be able to go through this. So I'm going to flash them very quickly, just to showing how our product is differentiated from the existing products. In endometriosis, that is a pain-caused lesion by the uterus-like cells move outside of the uterus and cause intense pain. Sometimes people use NSAIDs. There's no clinical benefit. Now, if that doesn't work, invariably they don't work, and patients will graduate to OCPs, the oral contraception pills. They work sometimes. When I mentioned the new drug is called GnRH antagonist, they are clinically proven to work. The challenge is that they are hormonal. They suppress the ovulation cycle. There's no more menstruation. There's no chance of childbearing. And indeed, there are other side effects. For example, bone loss, cardio issues. They're not to be indicated for use for more than 2 years. In contrast, our molecule, MA7107, there is a well-established scientific rationale that would work on inhibiting the dysmenorrhea, or the intense pain that's normally associated with menstrual period. It's exacerbated by lesion from endometriosis. So our therapeutic areas, our hypothesis is that we will target menstrual pain without affecting the ovulation cycle. So that if approved, a drug that would be preferred to GnRH antagonists, it would be safer to NSAIDs, allow them for long-term use from the onset of endometriosis all the way to menopause. By the time of the menopause, the endometriosis effect is solved by itself. our goal is to, not only that, to achieve first line use. So that it will become an attractive option for all patients and reduce the need for surgical operations. The market, if we are to pursue second line, our projection is $900 million per year. If we can get a first line, that could increase to $2.4 billion a year. Now, don't just take my word for it. Here is a letter of endorsement from a pharma company leading in women's health, Organon. In their opinion, our approach makes sense, and they're excited by the prospect of this new drug, and they're interested in discussing down the road for potential partnership. Very quickly, IPF, or idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, there's a strong clinical evidence indicating F2 alpha signaling to the disease. New data from the University of Pennsylvania has shown that suppressing PGF2 has an effect in reducing the IPF animal models. Again, it's a very large opportunity. There are only 2 drugs in the market. One from my previous employer, Boehringer Ingelheim. Their sale was 3.2 billion last year, 2 billion euros last year. Given that both of these drugs targeting what's known as the TGF-beta pathway. If you think about hormones, suppressing estrogen is not good. Suppressing TGF-beta is not good either. Nonetheless, they have achieved. So what we're seeing is that this drug, can be 50% of patients who has IPF can't use it because of severe effects. So we are going after these $11 billion market. And again, I have a letter from Columbia that supports our hypothesis, and also showing that our company distinguish ourselves from the existing efforts that are targeting TGF-beta. Our drug is safer, that can be used for more patients. IP is licensed from Ferring Pharmaceutical for all users worldwide, and the license is perpetual. We don't have time to go through this, but all our team, this team has a combined experience of 60+ years in pharma. All of the teams are ex-Ferring individuals. So we are team members, we work together for years. And this is a specialized branch of science that would be very difficult for another company to assemble a team in this caliber. We also augmented by a strong scientific advisory board that includes a heavy pharma experience. That's Daryl Sheff, formerly SVP of Merck, and Eli Lilly. And we have 2 specialists, one for endometriosis, another for IPF. So today we're pursuing this path. Today we are here. We're 6 months away from pre-clinical candidate of PCC. So what we're raising is $500,000 to achieve that goal. After that, we're saying this will set a stage to raise 10 million seeds, so that it will allow us to get an IND in 1 year, another year go into phase 1 and then phase 2, then we'll pursue an exit. So today, our fundraising is focused on SAFE. We have raised $300,000 so far since last December. That's raised between friends and family. Today's goal is to raise $500,000. In terms of post-money SAFE, 15% discount at 20% valuation. This money will allow us to get into declaration of PCC, or preclinical candidate, so that by then we will be raise a 10 million seed fund, or here is a part that should be attractive for us as well as for investors. There is a potential non-dilutive funding that's available. We have applied a 2.8 million SBIR grant by addressing IPF, this is clearly unmet medical needs. Now, there's no guarantee our chance is good. Now, we're also excited with this 10 million investment that's called Spring for Women's Health. That is announced last week by an executive order in with president and the first lady have convened this panel. So there's 10 million available. So what we're offering today is 500,000 at 20 million valuation. Essentially, you're getting 2.5% of a company. So with that, thank you for your time.
Right, so thanks, everybody. I'm happy to talk to you today about my company, Biosymmetrics. Just a quick note about the founders. So myself, I'm co-founder, chief scientific officer. My name is Keith Musso. Most of my background is in computational and systems biology. I've been working in computation biology for about the past 15 or so years. I did my PhD at the University of Toronto. After that, I was a research fellow at Harvard Medical School, and I've since been working on this company. My co-founder, Anthony Iacobone, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, is the serial entrepreneur. So he has 3 previous exits, mostly in the ad tech space. So he actually comes at this from an entirely different industry, but was motivated to start Biosymmetrics because he saw the potential for applications of machine learning in the biomedical space. And that's how ultimately we were introduced, and we've been working on that ever since. Just a couple quick notes about Biosymmetrics at a high level, and obviously I'm going to go into a lot more detail. We were founded in 2017. As a company, we were able to bootstrap from the early days. So Anthony put in the initial seed funding, and we're able to be revenue positive over our first couple of years. We signed contracts with Merck, Pfizer, Janssen, Supernus, mostly in a service-based capacity. Over the past several years, we've transitioned our model to being more service-focused, to being more focused in developing our own internal pipeline. Over the past year, we've leveraged that pipeline to identify a novel therapeutic for epilepsy, which is now showing efficacy in mouse. And so that's the nature of why we're raising money, is trying to get a bit more resources to be able to develop that therapeutic a little bit further down our pipeline and start to empower and allow us to template that for a few other discoveries that we're working on as well. We're raising a $7.5 million convertible note. We've got 4.5 in the door, and I'm looking to close that out. So what's the problem that we're trying to address? This is probably a statistic that you're familiar with, that 90% of clinical trials are generally going to fail. And there's about a $2 billion price tag to bring a single drug to market. And the reason for that is not because of just the expense of developing that drug, but it's because of subsidizing the failures that have come before it. Because of the high error rate of clinical trials, there just happens to be a lot of R&D costs that you're subsidizing. And so the reason that most clinical trials are going to fail is really one of two things. One is a lack of efficacy, so the drug doesn't do as well as you'd hoped it would do in terms of treating the disease. The other is toxicity, so it has some unanticipated effect that causes some side effect that you didn't want, and that's something negative as well. Our entire philosophy is that these two problems can be avoided if you can, one, better understand your clinical population, so have a good understanding of exactly what it is that you're trying to treat from a clinical perspective, and two, get evidence in vivo, so in a living organism, as quickly as possible, so that your programs can fail before they get to the very expensive stages. So the way that we approach that is through a process that we call phenomics driven. So for those of you that are not from the science space, a phenotype is something that you can observe. And what we're ultimately trying to do is, as I said, better understand a phenotype. So what is this person in the clinic presenting to us? And ultimately model that out in the lab. So how can we best model what we're seeing within the clinic? And then how can we best develop drugs that address what we're seeing? The way that we do that is through a platform that we call Elion. So I'm going to go through the details of this platform, but basically what it allows you to do is go from a clinical understanding to an identified therapeutic, ultimately through 4 pillars. Underlying all of this technology and the entirety of our platform is what's called contingent AI. So this is our core machine learning technology that we developed and we have patents about and is protected. But this is instantiated in, as I was saying, 4 aspects of our platform. The first designed to help us better understand clinical populations through machine learning and patient stratification. The second, which we call the phenograph, allows us to basically map relationships between what we can see in the clinic and what we can model in the lab. Computer vision is where we leverage, again, machine learning to be able to do a lot of experiments in a living organism in a very short amount of time and inexpensively. And the last has to do with chemistry. and make sure that we optimize our chemical space so that we can do as few experiments as possible and ultimately identify novel therapeutics. So starting on the patient side, this is really where biosymmetrics started to work. We recognized that there was a limitation in terms of how people were dealing with clinical data. We were seeing a lot of people basically make mistakes when it came to taking a clinical data set and trying to either predict outcomes for patients or trying to stratify patients into little groups, which can be really useful if you're doing something like setting up a clinical trial. So this is what motivated us to start to work on our contingent AI framework, where we can take different types of patient data, data from an EMR, data from the genome sequence, from proteomic sequence, from images like MRIs, et cetera, put this all into one single computational framework and then use it to predict, is my patient going to get better or worse? Do they belong in a specific subcategory with other patients that present similarly? The entire concept is really forgetting about conventional disease labels that are a bit old and a bit antiquated and using a more modern framework to really better understand clinical populations. And this is something that's allowed us to establish relationships within industry. So we worked during COVID, for example, to design inclusion-exclusion criteria for the COVID vaccine trial for Janssen. We've analyzed phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trial data for companies like Humanigen and others. And we have a longstanding relationship with Northwell Health in New York State, which has about 11 million patient population. The next aspect, once we have a good understanding of the group that we want to study in the clinic, what do we do with that? How do we get that into the lab? That's what's traditionally called the valley of death. Is I understand this about my patient population, but I have no idea how to build a therapeutic for it. We have devised a framework which we call the Phenograph, and basically what it is a set of linkages between human disease annotations, human phenotypes, human characteristics, and corresponding phenotypes in model systems. So what the Phenograph allows us to do is say, okay, this is the ICD code, or this is the biomarker, or this is the gene that we're interested in human. Here's what you should be looking at in your model system. You want to be looking at this output, and this is what you ultimately want to be quantifying. The way that we've built this is through curation of all of these different data sets over the past 4 or 5 years. And we've filled in the white space using machine learning. So we have about 300 proprietary machine learning models that we've built that predict the effects of thousands of different genes on hundreds of different phenotypes. And that's where we've kind of built out the capacity of what we call the Phenograph. The next aspect, as I mentioned, is in the lab. So our lab is in Toronto, and we study a model organism called zebrafish. And for anyone that's not seen a zebrafish before, these are them. They're transparent. And so you can literally watch as the heart develops and the brain develops. You can quantify their behavior and their morphology. They were actually developed, initially used not too far from here out in Oregon. Basically, researchers got from a pet store and started to study them and started to look at very kind of intricate developmental biology and noticed they developed very similarly to humans and higher vertebrates. But what's unique about zebrafish is because they're aquatic, I can just put them into a 96-well plate and I can give them thousands of different compounds and I can see how they respond to all of these different potential treatments. Through the use of machine learning, we've basically automated this process. So all of the coloring that you're seeing here, this is added on by us through computer vision. We're automatically looking at their heart rate, their heart rhythm. Do they have arrhythmia? Do they have alterations in cardiac output? We're looking at the development of their muscular system, of their head, of their eye. This is coloring that we've added on, and we're basically tracking the individual blood cells as they circulate through the animal, so we're able to look at their circulation. And this last one, so this is a 96-well plate. It's about this big, about 4 inches by 3 inches. And I've got about 6 or 8 of them within every well. And what we're doing here is we're using, again, our motion tracking software to track the motion of every embryo and every well. And that's the plots that you're seeing out here on the left. And in about 5 seconds, what we're going to do is we're going to turn a light on. And when we turn that light on, they start to scatter. And the reason they start to scatter is because they've been exposed to a compound called PTZ, which has been studied for a long time in epilepsy. It activates certain receptors within the brain that are known to be associated with the same, same pathways that are mutated when patients have epilepsy. And so this, quantifying this type of response allows us to study diseases like epilepsy. So this all comes together to form a process that can go from initially basically understanding a disease or a gene or a biomarker of interest to identifying a potential therapeutic in a process that takes about 5 or 6 months and costs about $150,000 or $200,000. The comparable standard for that currently within industry is that for that to take about 1 or 2 years and cost several $1 million. We've just now templated this out for epilepsy, and are looking to do the same for other disorders. So how do we engage the market? Really, there's three ways. I mentioned at the beginning that we do some fee-for-service work. So we've tried to be strategic about this and leverage our platform in a way that allows us to build out capabilities that further help develop our internal pipeline. But this is an example of a project we did recently. So a pharmaceutical company called Supernus that studies epilepsy had a drug that had failed clinical trial. And they came to us and said, did we give this to the wrong population? Could we have done a bit better if we gave it to people that had either a specific type of mutation or a specific subgroup of people that have epilepsy? So we made 15 different genetic models in zebrafish. We screened their compound, compared it to current standard of care. And we basically said, you know, there's these two mutations that you should be focused on because that's where your drug really has a more dramatic effect as compared to these other mutations. They took the data that we generated plus their own data and submitted that to the FDA and are now relaunching a phase 2 clinical trial. More recently, because we're still quite a small company, we signed a collaborative agreement with Ginkgo Bioworks. So this actually was just a couple of weeks ago. The nature of this is Ginkgo is putting together a bunch of biotechnology companies that have platforms that they can white label and ultimately use their sales team of about 60 people to bring out into the market. So we're anticipating that this is going to increase our fee-for-service work as well, driving a bit more revenue. Partnerships. So last year we signed a collaborative agreement with Deerfield Cures. So for people that aren't familiar with Deerfield, it's one of the largest biotech investors. Deerfield Cures is a subdivision within Deerfield that basically has a mandate to identify novel therapeutics. So we pitched to Deerfield for investment 2 years ago, and we were a bit too early for them. We didn't fit within their mandate, but they liked us. And so they said, let's sign this 5-year collaborative agreement. The nature of it is we bring a target portfolio to them. If they like it, it passes through a period of scientific diligence and then a period of financial diligence. If it passes those 2 steps, we create a joint venture that's co-owned by Biosymmetrics and Deerfield. They can invest up to 40 million. So it brings back not only the equity, but also revenue to Biosymmetrics. We have one program in front of them now that's passed the scientific diligence and is now just undergoing the financial diligence. And so the decision on that is going to be in May. And if all goes well, we'll be announcing that heading into bio in June. And it's not just Deerfield that we're focused on in terms of partnerships. We have, you know, as I was saying, we've been at this for a while. We have a lot of long-standing relationships with pharmaceutical companies. And so we're looking to basically template these existing deals. These aren't ours. These are other examples from industry. But typically these collaborative projects will involve anywhere from $5 to $10 million upfront and a total deal value of about $200 million. And the idea is you go on discovery projects together and you co-develop novel therapeutics. The last aspect is licensing. So I mentioned that we had developed our own compound for epilepsy. The way that it works is that we started with the phenograph and we said, okay, we know we can make some effective models for epilepsy. You know, what genes should we start with? What biosignal should we start with? And so this is just a little vignette of us using our phenograph and starting, you know, with the first term that we put in, which was pediatric epilepsy. And then we're looking at, you know, what phenotypes are relevant in the context of epilepsy within zebrafish. And it gives us a nice little plot. And that plot tells us, you know, genes that both have a high relevance to the disease in human and a high prediction of having a relevant phenotype. That brought us to one gene in particular called KCC2. When we developed a genetic model of KCC2, we saw when we shone a strobe light on them, they had this really dramatic hyperactivity response, analogous to what you'd see in people that have epilepsy. We leveraged this and automated this, and we screened about 2,000 compounds in about a week and a half and identified 22 that address this phenotype without causing any underlying mortality to the zebrafish. They appear to be non-toxic, and they don't appear to be sedative, which is important because majority of epilepsy therapeutics are sedatives, and that's the side effect you want to get away from. We took one of these 22, we brought it into a mouse model. We saw that it significantly reduced seizure in a mouse model. And so we are continuing to develop this. We have about a dozen ongoing conversations with pharmaceutical partners about potentially licensing this. We're not bringing this to the clinic ourselves. We're looking to license this as early as possible. We don't have the resources to go through a phase 1 or 2 clinical trial at this stage. And so there's just a few more endpoints that we're trying to get to, a few more data points we're trying to generate, where ultimately we can out-license this. And just in terms of what that deal might look like, this was a deal that was struck last year between AstraZeneca and a company called Ovid Therapeutics, where Ovid licensed a set of pre-indication compounds targeting this same protein, KCC2, for $12.5 million upfront and a total deal value of about $215 million. I'm running out of time, so just to say this same, as far as we are in epilepsy, that's certainly our most developed project. But we have a number of other diseases that we're also looking at. This is a combination of where we feel we can make effective models and market feedback that we've got from our pharmaceutical partners and knowing where they're interested in early stage collaboration. We have a wonderful board of strategic advisors that have a great combination of both industry experience and academic experience. And I won't force you to do the eye exam there, but I'm more than happy to circulate these slides if you want to look in a bit more detail. These are, again, details on our convertible note. Anthony, my partner, is leading this round as he has our previous round. I'm just about out of time. And so again, I can circulate this if you're looking for those details as well. Thank you.
So yeah, and again, if we have a quick question, we can move to that real quick. Anybody?
I just wonder, you seem to be a big R research group trying to commercialize a bunch of stuff early on, but not actually own the end results. And that suggests to me that you have to have really deep partnerships to make that work. And I wonder what the sales cycle is on those partnerships to get that kind of thing to be effective.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's long. So most of those fee-for-service agreements that I was talking about tend to be shorter in terms of sales cycle. There we're probably looking at anywhere between 3 to 6 months. Those larger partnership agreements can be on the scale of 1 to 2 years. And so we have already initiated those. Those are conversations that we have that are ongoing, but we certainly don't have anything that's papered yet. Our goal is to get that proof point, and then that would be the major factor that kicks off our Series A. So getting one of those relationships established and papered would be the trigger point for us then going out and raising a more substantial round. I will also say in terms of ownership, you're absolutely right. We are looking to partner in the majority of cases, but for the epilepsy asset that I mentioned, that's entirely owned by Biosymmetrics. So that is our own IP.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's move into our final presenter of the day. Maybe Steve.
Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Thierry Page. I'm the COO of Starpax Biopharma. We have developed a totally new way of treating cancer, and it is conceived to basically avoid the side effects of the current treatments. So, should come.
Shane sabotaged you, like me.
Hey, this is not my computer.
Is it conspiracy?
Here, where should I click to? Do you have a mouse or something like that?
There is a mouse, I'm not sure.
Now, no drug to date has been able to work in a hypoxic environment. Radiation therapy doesn't work there. Immunotherapy, the immune cells are blocked from going into a hypoxic zone. And so it's an area that we need to penetrate. And finally, with the Starpax technology, we have bacteria that actually move towards and can be accumulated in the hypoxic zone.
The Starpax treatment is conceived to deliver therapeutic agents directly to hypoxic zones and throughout the tumor volume using BN1S bacteria. The BN1S is a proprietary bacterium developed in laboratory. It is non-pathogenic and sensitive to magnetic fields with which Starpax controls its trajectory with millimetric precision. These bacteria loaded with the drug constitute the Starpax magnetodromes. The second part of the technology is the Starpax polar track. The patient is positioned in the polar track so that the tumor is at the focal point of the magnetic fields generated by the polar track. After reaching the tumor, the magnetodromes are injected. At this moment, the polar track is conceived to create a magnetic sphere around the tumor in order to contain the magnetodromes and their drugs inside the tumor to avoid toxicity elsewhere in the patient's body. Thanks to their small size, the magnetodromes swim within the tumor. Then they follow a magnetic focal point that moves in 3 dimensions within the tumor volume.
So, and I don't know why the video cut, but After 30 minutes, the drug is released and the bacteria will die because the body of the temperature is too warm for them to survive. So actually, it's not pathogenic. So we have an interesting board of directors. Our founding president, Michael Garreau, is serial entrepreneur, always in tech, to exit over $1 billion. And in his last venture, he provided an IRR of 218% to his investors. We've got 3 former large pharma, retired large pharma people, 1 retired person from JP Morgan Europe, a retired oncologist with 35 years of clinical development experience, and a partner in a law firm. So we have completed all our preclinical trials, and we've used very aggressive tumors, human tumors that were basically doubling every 48 hours. And we've got 100% remission rate and no meaningful side effect observed on 6 animal models. In our clinical trials, we expect that in the tumor, there will be 200 times more drug, 2,000 times more drug in the tumor than a systemic chemotherapy, but 800 times less circulating in the body because it's localized. So we've got 3 therapeutic benefits with this approach. The first one is the localized chemotherapy, where we can contain the chemo that is, we use already approved chemo, avoiding the systemic exposure, and then targeting the hypoxic areas, which there is currently no technology enabling to being able to target those areas which are responsible for resistance to treatment and metastasis. And also because we are using bacteria, there is an immune response. So there is an immunoadjuvant effect also of just because of the bacteria. So our clinical trials are planned in this fall. And we are targeting, we will have indication in unmet medical needs for those 6 important organs that would represent a market opportunity of $56 billion annually. So we have accomplished 2 very important milestones on top of our completing our preclinical studies. We completed the construction of our magnetodrone manufacturing plant for the bacteria with the drug. And also this is the polar track installed at the Jewish General Hospital. They converted a radiation therapy room into a polar track room. And you know the war for space in a hospital, so this tells you a lot about what they think about the technology. And also we've secured important partnership for the next step. We will do the clinical trials at 2 important hospitals in Canada. So we are located in Montreal, so the Jewish General Hospital. This hospital is one of the top cancer research hospital in Canada. Michael Douglas, when he had his head and neck cancer, was treated at the Jewish General Hospital. And there is another CRC, which is another important hospital. Also, we will have collaboration. So we will have 3 co-investigators from the MD Anderson Cancer Center. And we recently joined the Innovation Exchange Program with the 3 campuses of Mayo Clinic. So our business is different than the traditional approach. Our approach is to develop ambulatory imaging and interventional center. We don't need to be in a hospital setting for this technology. This could be in an outpatient facility. So our market assessment is that there would be 600 Starbucks Cancer Center, the market in North America, and we double that if we include Europe. So a Starbucks Cancer Center is 10 polar track, 2 MRI, and 1 CT scanner. And the business model is to deploy those cancer centers. There's currently 2,000 outpatient radiation therapy private clinics in the US. So this is nothing new. And the idea is to build, own, and operate those cancer centers. So the business plan after getting an approval, and I will come to that after, is to build the first cancer center once we've got the approval. So, and then the second year, it's in operation, and the 3rd year, it's getting in full operation. Meanwhile, So all the cancer centers will be, the architecture, the engineering will be the same, and we just deploy them. So our business model is to deploy 25 over a period of 7 years. We are already discussing partnership to the development. So after year 2, so we are cash flow positive in our business model. And then it's getting a very lucrative business model, because if we compare to existing price point of unmet medical needs, we could be 30 to 50% cheaper, but still offering a good total value for care. So in terms of our timeline, so we started the business in 2018. We licensed 2 patents from a network of Canadian universities for guiding the magnetic field guidance. So we have completed our manufacturing plant construction. Now we are doing the commissioning of the manufacturing plant and preparation, the clinical trial readiness. So we intend to start the clinical trials by the end of this year, 6 months for phase 1 in terms of toxicity. So we have an approach where we are targeting unmet medical needs. And the idea is for phase 2, to conduct them in series. So first one will be most likely pancreatic cancer. There is unfortunately a large patient population of unmet medical needs. And the idea is to file to the regulators to start the regulatory approval process. Meanwhile, we'll continue for the other cancers and file the different reports. So in terms of the amount raised so far, we've raised $56 million that we have developed that were used for preclinical trials, plant construction, and the polar track. So now we are raising another round, which is a pre-IPO round for approximately $27 million. And the use of fund will be for plant commissioning, preparation of clinical trials, phase 1, 6 cancer, and phase 2, 1 cancer. This will bring us to an inflection point. And the idea is to somewhere having the first result to go for IPO. So in terms of our cap table, we have a very simple cap table. We have all our shares are in common shares. There is no convertible debt. There is no dilutive warrants nor options. Everybody's aligned. And we have a anti-dilution protection for all investors. So our cap table there's a lot of, angels, accredited investors, family office. So we've got a diversity, but every time that there is an investment, let's say for 1 share, then IPAX 2, which is owned by our funding president, lose 1 share. So there is always the same number of shares. So it doesn't matter the amount of money that is invested. So we recently launched a Regulation A+ offering. So in terms of the minimal amount, so there's no minimal threshold. So there is a diversity, and then you've got this protection. So we've got investors that invested the first one of $100,000, and then another one of $200,000, and then they put money every year because they know that whatever the money that is coming, they are not diluted. I know it's a little bit different, but we think that this is an interesting approach for angel investors, family offices, and other type of investors. So we believe that it's a low investment risk compared to other developing new drugs. So according to FDA in oncology, 97% of the new drugs will fail. It was mentioned earlier because of toxicity and because the mechanism of action. But we are different here. We don't develop drugs. We use already approved molecules that are used as a first-line treatment. And the drug that we use are off patent. So we don't need to pay a license fee to any big pharma. So we use what is already used in first-line treatments around the world. And so the toxicity and the mechanism of action is proven. So we just use less drug of something that is already working. And in terms of the polar track, so the magnetic fields are 2,000 times weaker than an MRI. So it's a very safe medical device. So that never failed in terms of its precision because we had different models. So this is the first human scale model that we have. So that concludes my presentation, and I will be pleased to answer any questions.
I'm curious about your decision process to set up your own shops versus just selling the existing industry. Tell me about the pros and cons.
So in terms of, you're talking about manufacturing plants of.
No, I'm not talking about. You said during your presentation that you're gonna set up your own retail shops.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking.
Yeah, okay, so we needed to have a business model that makes sense. So that could be attracting basically the interest to different type of for the acquisition and the exit. So we think that we will be acquired before we will start implementing those cancer centers. But because of this business model, we could be interesting to large pharma, but also to large private equity that are in the healthcare industry, and also to large medical imagery companies, because they are, this is an interventional approach that use a lot of imagery. So this is very interesting for them so that they can use their imaging technology. So we see three different types of buyers, and this is why we went through this approach.
So in a US style insurance environment, how would this compete against traditional chemotherapies that don't have all the fancy technology?
So that's an interesting question. And in terms of reimbursement, so basically it's, and this was at the beginning, but the slide skipped, but it's an approach which is considered as precision interventional oncology. So all the workflow that we are using for the patients basically is the same as radiation therapy and brachytherapy. So all the different aspects of the workflow, there's already existing billing codes for that. So we would need to basically price the magnetodrones as a therapeutic as other compounds.
Has that already been approved in the US?
No, because we need to do clinical trials for that. But we use SN38, which is a drug that is already used in so many different compounds already.
But the drug that you're using is off and probably very cheap. I'm guessing that your cost to deliver that drug is going to be dominant factor, and that's where I'm billing.
It's an important factor, but still, in terms of the final pricing for the whole treatment, because we can avoid the costs related to the side effects. So 70% of costs related to cancer treatments is related to dealing with the side effects. So having this intervention, we believe that.
I'm not doubting that in a logical, well thought out, long-term thinking medical system, this thinking would make you very successful. But in the US, where you're getting billed for codes, it may be a little bit more tricky to show that it works economically. It may have a longer.
But the play will be the cost of the therapeutics, the magnetodrones. So because we already did some assessments, and the play will be the cost of the magnetodrones in terms of the pricing of our approach. So in terms of the workflow, the codes are already there. So there is no room for negotiation.
Thanks.
Well, that concludes our presentations. Thank you so much, Thierry. Great job. I do want to thank everybody for joining us today.